Mortal Kombat weapons. Today we're ranking them all because you requested it in the comments. When my fans make the call, I must answer. From the famous weapons to the lamest weapons, and everything in between. These are kinda cool. Mortal Kombat is famous for violence, so of course the series is stuffed with epic weapons, some of which are literally attached to the character. They can't get rid of them, bro. Then other weapons have big impact on the story. Like just imagine Ashura without her sword. You can't. Yeah, today's video is gonna get crazy. Katana's fans aren't even top 5. Oh yeah, now you're hooked. You can't look away from the screen anymore. Comment your favorite Mortal Kombat weapons down below. Mine is Jade's staff, believe it or not, because it glows like a lightsaber and doubles as a stripper pole. What could be better?
You know, saved Earthrealm from evil, yada yada yada.
But your greatest weapon is the like button. It decides my fate. So if you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like down below, and if we get 2,000 likes, I'll buy a Mortal Kombat weapon of your choice and use it in a future video, similar to the nunchucks. Oh wait, it's my birthday when you watch this, I totally forgot. Yeah, December 1st, so can I get a like from that? Come on, 2,000 likes, let's go. Alright, for anyone new to my channel, I'm trying to reach 500,000 subscribers before 2026, and I think we can do it. Smash that red button and ring that bell so you never miss any future content. Alright everyone, without any further ado, let's begin. Alright, here we go, ranking every Mortal Kombat weapon. First up is Kung Lao's hat. Come on. Is there any better example? Let's be honest. Not only is Kung Lao's hat iconic in its own right, we recognize it all by itself, but also his character is tied to the weapon. In other words, you can't separate Kung Lao from his hat, it has to be there. Very similar to Jax's arms. In Mortal Kombat 2, he debuted without them, but ever since, Jax and his arms are inseparable. Alright, the man must have his robot arms. Well, actually there's cybernetic enhancements, but let's not get too into it. Another great example is Kano's cybernetic eye. You can't separate this man from his eyeball. Fans would hate it. Can you even imagine if Kano shows up in the next game without his cybernetic eye? There would be riots in the streets. And to me, that's what makes a really iconic weapon. Without Kano's eye laser, he's just not Kano. He needs to have it. But alright everyone, there's more characters in this row, but for now I want to move on and keep things interesting, right? Keep it spicy. Because next up is a big deal. Ashura's sword is a big deal. Because her entire story wraps around this weapon. That's right, Ashura's entire journey as a character is tied to her weapon, which is actually a vampire sword. Now for the new era, I've got no clue if it's still vampiric. It's definitely still enchanted, according to Megan Fox.
That blade's enchanted.
Which could mean it's still evil, but I'm not sure. So far, NetherRealm's done nothing with this weapon, but Ashura is directly linked to her sword. Just like Kabal and his hook swords, this man might be more famous for his super speed and also his creepy mask. But even so, his hook swords are very iconic and you can't take them away. Kabal needs his hook swords. In fact, when Midway tried giving his weapons to a different character named Mavado, fans were immediately upset. And in the next game, right, the very next game, Mavado's weapon was changed and Kabal got his hook swords back. That's how much fans love these weapons and also associate them with Kabal. Real quick though, for a fast tangent, I believe these weapons are Shaolin monk in nature, so Kabal having them is very funny considering he's a criminal. Like no, seriously, how do you get these weapons? It's not that big of a deal, but you can definitely tell the developers just thought these look cool and gave them to a cool looking character, and that's how Kabal got them. Alright, one more fast example for this row, Cyrax. His net and his bomb are just so iconic, his buzzsaw too. The man's an absolute arsenal of weaponry, alright, all by himself. But I would say those three weapons in particular are what he's known for. You can't give a net to anybody else, it belongs to Cyrax. You can't give bombs to anybody else, that belongs to Cyrax. However, like mentioned earlier, there's more characters in this row, I just want to move on for now. Cool and unique weapons. Kung Jin's bow staff, this thing does it all. Can shoot fireballs, fire spirit arrows, all that incredible stuff. Yeah, this weapon is so cool. It might be new and not quite iconic yet, but I would argue Kung Jin's bow staff is one of the most unique weapons in the entire series. It's just so cool. Along with Collector's entire arsenal. Come on, you can't mention Mortal Kombat weapons and not talk about Collector. This man's entire gimmick is having tons of knickknacks and weaponry, so yeah, the guy's stacked with cool stuff. However, you can't talk about unique weapons without mentioning Mavado. Where is he? There he is. This guy has bungee cables that he flies around with like Spider-Man, which is so dang cool, especially in Mortal Kombat 1. Man, I wish he was a full character. anymore. Because real talk, to be honest with you all, in the Midway era, they didn't do enough with his bungee cables. They're barely used for movement, like to sidestep, maybe retreat, and that's it. Boring. MK1 did it way better. I'm sorry, that game has so many faults, but Mavado's weapons are showcased perfectly. It's so cool. Alright, time for the mid-tier. These weapons are still interesting, just not unique to the character or not very creative, right? For example, Liu Kang's nunchucks. I love nunchucks. They're so cool. I own my own pair and love doing tricks with them in my free time. But with that said, compared to everything else in Mortal Kombat, they're just not super interesting nor unique to Liu Kang. Some other characters also use nunchucks. And poor Mileena's in this boat too. I feel more bad for her though, because she debuted with her own weapons, right? The sais. However, for some reason Midway said, let's just give everybody sais. It began with Li Mei, I think, then Goro got them, and Shiva too, I think. Lots of characters use sais, which is unfair to Mileena. She debuted with them, but as it stands right now, sais are just not unique anymore. They're mid. Real quick though, mini rant, the sais in Mortal Kombat have never been correct. They're sharp and pointy and used to stab, which is not true to real sais. They're actually blunt and used for bludgeoning or disarming other weapons. That's why they're thick and actually really heavy. Well, heavy for their size, I mean, right? They look small, but they're actually much heavier than you would think until you hold them. They're for bludgeoning, whacking, and disarming, not for stabbing. But Mortal Kombat games make them all piercy for some reason. Finally, we have Draman. I like that his club is attached to his arm, but as a weapon itself, it's just a club, right? Not even a club with spikes. It has like rounded bumps instead, which I just realized might imply it's an Asian weapon, like the Shugoki in For Honor. So that's kinda neat. Maybe I'll move it up to cool or unique, which means I need a new character for this tier. Reiko, here you go. The man throws ninja stars despite not being a ninja, and he's got a club, but not attached to him like with Draman. It's just a regular club, so not interesting whatsoever. Alright, time for kinda lame tier. I'm gonna be lazy and put 3 characters here right away because they all use guns, and not even high-tech guns or supernatural guns, just regular boring guns. Stryker, Cassie Cage, and Aaron Black. In fact, I was surprised to realize that Cassie uses the exact same weapons as Stryker, down to the police baton. I really think NetherRealm was trying to replace Stryker with Cassie. She has all of his weapons. Alright, time for the bottom row. I'm gonna do these all at once because they're not actually weapons, they're constructs. For anybody watching who's not a nerd, constructs are weapons made by the character themselves using magic of some kind. So Sub-Zero, Scarlet, Frost, Tremor, and Nightwolf. All of these characters use constructs, which isn't exactly bad, but I would argue they don't have their own unique weapons, right? They can make anything with their imagination. So that's why I gave them their own tier. It's not the worst tier, it just happens to be at the bottom. Alright, it's time to finish off all these tiers, starting with the top. We're back up top again. Scorpion, I've got to defend my reasoning here. So Scorpion's chain spear is awesome, but I'd argue it's what he does with the move that's actually iconic, right? Throwing it out, stabbing you, and pulling you in. That's all that really matters, which is why in the movie it was a CGI snake, and in some games it was a rope spear, others it's a chain. You know what I mean? The weapon itself changes, but the movement itself, the actual attack, does not, and that's what's iconic. So that's why Scorpion is number 4 instead of at the very front. His weapon changes a lot and nobody really cares. Then we have Shao Kahn's hammer. It's such a big deal that when NetherRealm changed it in MK1, everyone got mad, like really mad. Then we have Kitana. Some would argue she should be way up front. I disagree. I think her wind fans are really cool and definitely essential to the character. However, whenever the design changes or the attacks change a little bit, the fans don't freak out too much. In fact, in Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11, Kitana can switch to a different weapon and the fans didn't freak out. Sometimes it was the most popular variation. But next up is Jade's pole staff, and you know what? I think she might actually go way up here. Because let's be honest, if you gave Jade any other weapon, people would freak out. Hell, if you changed the color, people freak out. Mortal Kombat 11 made it green, and everybody was mad. Anyways, to end this tier, we have Kenshi's sword, because his mind powers are what he's more famous for, not the weapon itself. Sento is just a regular samurai sword. Yes, it gives him the telekinesis, I do believe, so that makes it pretty iconic. That's why it's still in the top row, but maybe I still feel like you could name the sword whatever you want, you could change its look and appearance, and fans wouldn't freak out too much. Alright, real quick, I'm thinking maybe we do like this. That feels more fair, yeah. Yeah, the issue is Sento is directly tied to Kenshi. You know, you can't separate him from it, which means actually he might be here. like that. This makes more sense, I guess. All right, next up is Baraka. Some say this should be in the top row. I understand that line of thinking because Baraka is directly tied to the weapon, but the weapon itself is not super unique. It's just a sword out of his wrists, you know? And in some games it's metal, others it's bone, and none of the fans seem to really care. They're okay with either situation. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Maybe Baraka does belong in the top tier, but Shao Kahn should be down here maybe. Because now that I think about it, Shao Kahn has tons of weapons, not just the hammer, right? Yes, the hammer itself is iconic, but it's just a regular big hammer. So Baraka's arm blades are definitely more unique in that regard. Alright, Takeda. I think we can all agree that Takeda's weapons are so cool. They're spiky whip razor blade things that are so fun. And in Mortal Kombat 1, they got more creative. He's swinging around like Spider-Man now, jumping, pulling you up to him. That's fun, man. That's fun. Then we have Sector. So not quite as iconic as Cyrax. Nobody would argue that, but the man fires missiles and has a flamethrower. That's still pretty cool. Along with Devora's bug weapons, I'm gonna be honest, the weird like spider legs she has are pretty dang cool. And also completely unique to her. Nobody else in the series has these things. They're pretty iconic, they're a big deal. Maybe not top row material, but I think second row is fair. Alright, back to cool and unique. I'm gonna start rapid firing here. Noob Saibot has a scythe that's so cool. Don't give the sickle to anybody else, he deserves it, because the guy's dead and symbolizes death in general. He's the Grim Reaper, pretty much. Then we have Fujin's crossbow. Did you know that no one else has used a crossbow in the entire series? That's unique to him, pretty cool. If you're wondering why he's not higher up, it's just because I don't consider a crossbow that cool. It's interesting, fun to use in real life, but in Mortal Kombat, it's not that impressive of a weapon. Rain's weapon in MK11's pretty cool though. I think I'll put him all the way up here. The thing can transform, he can slice dimensions with it, teleport with it. I think it even throws lightning to an extent. That thing is so cool. I forget what it's called. I think it's an Indian weapon. Not American Indian, but actually from India, right? I think it's from there. But if I'm wrong, it's still cool regardless. I think NetherRealm did a great job with Rain's weapon. It's so cool. Then to end this row, we have Kotal Khan and Motaro. I like his cybernetic horsetail, it fires lasers, just looks cool, and Kotal Khan has a giant sword. In Mortal Kombat X, it was specifically an Aztec weapon, but then in 11, you could customize it to be different stuff, like just a regular big metal sword, like Cloud in Final Fantasy VII, which on the one hand is neat, but on the other hand, I miss when it was an Aztec-specific weapon. Alright, time for the mid-tier, Sindel's Naginata. Listen, I love the Naginata as a weapon, but in Mortal Kombat, multiple characters have used it, and it's not that creative. Tanya's a funny one because she debuted with a boomerang, I think, which is cool. She should have kept the boomerang. But then she got the Kobu Jutsu wrist blade weapon things. I forget what they're called. Cole Young has them in the Mortal Kombat movie. And those weapons are kind of cool and unique to Tanya. I don't think anyone else has had them before, so I'll move her up to like here. Then to end this row, we have Havoc and Darius. Let's be honest, how many of you watching know their weapons? Yeah, exactly. I do because I'm a big nerd. Darius has these weird wrist blade sword things that are kind of neat, but not too much is done with them. He just stabs with them. Then Havoc has a spiky mace. Not a club, a mace, which is kind of unique. Maybe he belongs in the top row, but this row would be so long, man. It's gonna be so long. I don't know. Time for kind of lame tier. Moloch. I love this character, but his weapon's just a big stone ball. Then we have Su Hao, who's copying Kano. Well, lore-wise, Kano's copying him. Shut up! Shut up. Nobody cares. We know chronologically Kano was first. Then we have Jarek and Kira, who just use knives. Jarek has 2 laser eyes, but there's no cybernetic part of his face, so lame, boring. Yep, goodbye everybody.